So hi, today we're diving into a website SEO audit for Jennie from the Grange. So by the end of this episode, hopefully we'll have identified some simple, quick wins for Jennie's website and for her SEO. So welcome, Jennie. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Very excited about this call.
Yeah, me too. So before we start, a question I always start these audit episodes, I always ask my guests when they come on, is if we were to meet in 6 months' time and you were telling me about the amazing things happening in your business, how would your website be helping with that?
I think primarily it will be pulling leads in. So at the moment, I'll be completely honest, I don't think I get even one lead from my website. And I love my website and I really like the way that it looks. So that is quite disappointing to me. But obviously, why we're talking today is something isn't quite working from it. So if we were to talk in 6 months, I would be getting inquiries through my website. But the biggest change would be I would be getting bigger brands to come through my website. So rather than local businesses, which I think I cover really well because of my social media and because of the networking I do, I'd be getting leads from brands and people that I hadn't yet met or heard about me through my local network.
Okay, that sounds amazing. That definitely sounds like a good plan. And it's a really common problem where people have a website that they love, but it's just not working for them. It just doesn't do what they want them to. So before we start then, tell us a little bit about your business and how your website currently sits within your marketing activities.
So the business, we've been going almost a year now. So 1st of April, we'll have had our first birthday, and we are a location house. And what that means is that we have photography, filming, and we run events here and day retreats. And that can be for big companies in terms of their branding and maybe some shoots for different rooms, how they want their products to look, or it could be a local company that wants to run, for instance, today we've got a mastermind. We often have retreat days here. So it's like a whole host of activities, but the USP that we have is space. So when you hire our house, you hire the entire space, you hire the grounds, you hire all of the rooms. And so whether that's an event you're running, you can use the whole house, or whether it's like a photography or a video shoot as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen and we'll have a little look at your website. Okay, so do you have any way of sort of tracking what's happening with your SEO? I know you said that you think that you're not getting any traffic at the moment. Do you look at your analytics? Do you have Google Analytics set up?
I have Google Analytics. I have looked at them occasionally, I'll be very honest, and I can see, particular spikes on. So for instance, the events page is something that I update really regularly because we have so many events here. And if it's a public event, I can share it on there as well. And so that is the page that gets the most traction, which kind of doesn't really help me, if I'm honest, because that might get people to a client's events, and I love adding value to my clients, but that doesn't actually get me bookings as such. And maybe it inspires people, maybe think, oh, I could hold that there, or that's really interesting to see that sold out, for instance.
Yeah.
But the majority of visits go through to our events page.
Okay. And with the events page, do you have any, like, I can't see anything on here now, but do you have anything on there where you showcase former events or previous events that have happened?
No, I have got, so on the gallery shows pictures of our house as it is, and I've got a hidden page which has pictures of photo shoots, events that happen here, but I haven't made that live yet.
Okay. Because one of the things I would say, especially if you are trying to attract a particular type of audience, so if you are trying to attract those bigger brands, what are the things that bigger brands are likely to be typing into Google related to the kind of what they're looking for in relation to your business? But actually having some pages there, almost like case study pages, and I quite often end up mentioning case study pages when I'm doing these audits, but having some case study pages of the kind of businesses that you're trying to attract. And then that way you could strategically use your keywords throughout that page and show what's happened before. And that would make it easier then when people do come across that page. Those keywords could then help for people to find you. But when they do then find you, they can see that you are offering those kind of services that you're trying to sort of focus in on. So I would probably have that built into the events page in terms of, even if it's just a button that says, see the events that have happened previously, and so, just so that it's a little bit more visual, people can immediately see the kind of things that have happened, and you can then align that with those businesses that you're trying to attract, really.
Okay, I like that idea.
Yeah, I think that's something that you could potentially do, and that could quite quickly help you to get some more rankings for the kinds of businesses that you're trying to attract, really. And as you're
Okay.
doing that, as you're building out those pages, those case study pages, think one of the most important places that we can use keywords. So keywords are obviously the things that people are typing into Google that then leads to our website. So that leads to us showing up in search results, and that leads to our website. So one of the key places we can use them is within the URL. So if you had an example of the type of business that you're trying to attract, if you use that, and you'd have to, sort of spend some time thinking about it and thinking about the kind of things that you want to rank for. But it could be event for mastermind. That's something that immediately pops into my business, into my mind rather. Or it could be event for business mastermind. Or if you have a particular type of company or particular type of business that you're trying to attract, having that within that URL could be helpful. And then that's kind of one of the foundation places that you can have those keywords. And then you would also have that within strategic places on that case study page. But I think that could actually be really helpful. You could build out a few of those pages, make sure they're in your sitemap, and you submit them to Google. And that, I think, could be something that could be quite a quick win, especially if I know you've got loads of content, you've got amazing photos and everything. So that's something it can be very visual, but then you could just quickly create a case study, almost like a template page, where you describe what they were looking for, or maybe a problem, and like if they've hosted events elsewhere and they've had that as a problem. It depends whether you position it as you're a solution to the problem, which ultimately you are. The problem is that they need a place to host events, and you are that solution. But building those keywords into there, that could be really helpful for you, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Yeah. So you've got Google Analytics, which helps. You've worked out that that's a page that's getting lots of traffic. What about Google Search Console? Are you using that at all?
No.
Okay, because that's something, if you're thinking about SEO, this is one of the first things I recommend doing, is actually getting Google Search Console set up. So the difference between Google Analytics and Google Search Console: Google Analytics tells you how people have come into your website. So whether they're coming through socials or through a direct, where you've shared it maybe in an email or something like that. If they've come through Google search, or we're now starting to see AI searches appear in Google Analytics as well. So it tells you how they got to your website and what pages they visited whilst they were there. Google Search Console tells you more about what Google sees about and understands about your website. So it helps you to understand how Google sees your website. And I'm talking about Google, as I always talk about Google. Google is still the #1 search engine, and things are changing. But the things that you do to optimize for Google will also then help you to show up in the other searches as well. So if you're optimizing for Google, that will also help you to show up in Bing. It will help with being recommended by ChatGPT and Google Gemini and all the AI searches as well. So that's why we talk about Google. But what you can also do in there is you can make sure you can see what pages Google has actually put in its index. And that is where Google reads through all the information on your website and actually puts it in its index, which is just like Google's big library, basically, of understanding where your website sits into Google's index. So Google's big library, where your website is appropriate to put it in there. But it's really important to have Google Search Console, because it also helps you to see what search terms Google is associating with your website. So I'm just going to switch tabs in here. So this is one of my SEO tools. And these are the kind of things, it doesn't show you everything. So you will see more information in the back end of a Google Search Console account. And it's actually really simple to set it up as well. I have a little course on my website where you can go in, and it teaches you how to set up both Google Analytics and Google Search Console, and just the basics of using it. The thing I like about Google Search Console as well is the interface is actually a lot easier to use than Google Analytics. A lot of people go into Google Analytics, look at the screen and like, no, and just get their mind completely blown by it. It seems overwhelming. Whereas Google Search Console is actually a lot easier to understand what's going on in there as well. So it seems to be more user friendly, basically. So when I'm looking,
a plus.
yeah, definitely, especially anything with Google always feels a little bit overwhelming. So I think anything where they've improved it a bit. So when I'm looking at this is kind of giving me an idea of some of the keywords that Google is or search engines are associating with your website. So you are showing up for the Grange Bedford, which is good, and the Grange Milton Ernest. And I had a look. Did a quick search on my phone to see just to look at the mobile responsiveness of your website. But there are some other. There's Grange Academy, Kempston, which is not too
Yeah.
far from you, and
Yeah.
that their Google business profile is the first thing that's showing up when I search for the Grange Bedford. But then actually you are coming up as number one there. So that's good. You are in the first position for people who already know about you and they type the Grange Bedford in, you are showing up on number one, which is great.
Okay,
And
that's
this is showing that there's actually about 100 people a month, so 90 people a month searching for the Grange Bedford.
quite a lot, I think.
It is, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So
Hmm.
that's good. And the good thing is that you're in position one for that as well. So averagely, this is an average. And then most of the terms that are showing up are branded terms. So Grange Bedford, the Grange Bedford, the Grange. So, there's also Grange School Bedford as well. So that would, I'm
Yeah.
guessing that would be that academy, maybe. I'm not sure. And
That's in Kempston. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's the same thing. So that's people potentially could be searching for that. With the amount of networking you do and how visual you are as well, I would not be surprised anyway if the people are looking for this. And the fact that Google is putting you in position one, Google then probably understands that actually you are what people are searching for if they type in the Grange Bedford, which is great. There are a few other search terms that are showing up. So what I would say is if you were then looking at Google Search Console, I would be looking at the search query. So you can go in and you can have a look and see what search queries people are typing in to Google that Google is associating with your website. And I think the big thing to think about this is what's not showing up there. I think sometimes we can focus on, okay, what do I want to show up for? And that can feel a little bit overwhelming once you get past the basics of I know I want to show up for location house or event venue or something like that locally. But thinking about what you're not showing up for, and that when you've got a list there that you can look at, that can be really helpful because then that can make you think, okay, I know I'm not showing up for that. That's a really important search term. Which page of my website is the most appropriate for that? And how can I optimize that page? And that is the fundamentals of SEO, is actually just working out what you want to show up for, what page is the best, and then optimizing that page really. So even before you do that, even before you set up Google Search Console and allow it to gather a bit of data and get some information in there, you can be thinking about that anyway. So thinking about what terms you want to show up for. Have you ever done this with your social media? Have you ever done anything around, not necessarily keyword research, but just keyword sort of brainstorming and thinking about what you want to show?
No, I've done a lot around ideal client.
Okay.
And then craft my content around ideal client, but I wouldn't say I've done it around like keywords. And I mean, I do my hashtags.
Yeah.
But other than that, not really.
Yeah, I mean, even if you started with that, what sort other hashtags are they around ideal client? Are they more like
so there'll be like hashtag location house, like hashtag branding, personal branding, videography, photography, Bedford, retreat, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so things like location house, retreat, those kind of terms, I'm thinking that would probably be a good place to start. And thinking about, okay, how can I show up for that? Which pages of my website do I want to show up for that? And just sort of start there really. As I'm working with clients through my website success framework, I always say to start with 3 to 5 key pages of your website. So think about definitely your homepage, because it's something that your homepage is likely to be one of the pages that gets the most amount of traffic. Maybe if your events page is already getting quite a lot of traffic, you could look at that and just think about, okay, how can I optimize the events page? And what we can maybe do, let's have a little look at that page now. It's always good to dive into one page. So one of the things I would say about this page is potentially having a little intro here about events at the Grange. So I'm going to just turn on my little SEO toolkit. This tells me how optimized your page is. So there are certain places on your page. Say if we were taking a keyword, if we just say that we want this page to rank for events. I don't know. Help me with this one, Jenny. So events Bedford or events space?
Events Bedford.
Events Bedford. So if we did that, so if we were coming here and we wanted this page to be ranking for events Bedford, then you would want to use that search term in your page title, your page description, and throughout the page. Naturally, I have actually got a beginner's SEO checklist on my website. If you download that, it tells you the places to actually optimize. I've talked about this in lots of previous episodes as well, but there are certain places. So this is telling me that at the moment, the title of this page is events, and there isn't a description at the moment. So if we, let's actually, one thing we could do is go to Google and type in, if we just type in your name, we can put site : and then take out the www, take out any slashes or anything. And this will tell us what Google is actually indexing of your website. So it's saying you've got about 40 results. So there's about 40 pages that Google has in its index for your website. Couldn't think of the word there, website. So I was just looking for the events page just to see what Google is showing. So exclusive event hire. Actually, what is this URL? Events. Okay. So this is the page. Okay. So when you don't have a description, when you don't set a description for your page yourself, Google decides on one for you. And the events page is actually showing, be completely spoiled and enjoy yoga, creative activities, as well as delicious food. Book here, 25th June. So it's actually, Google is taking, maybe that, is that the, it's going to be one
I think
of
that's the longevity retreat.
Yeah. So Google has decided that's what this page is about. So the way you can help Google to understand better what this page is about and to actually start this page ranking for events Bedford is adding that into the page title. So it could be events Bedford or event location Bedford, but thinking about that, okay, what do you want this to show up for? And then adding that into the description as well. So think about with the page title, this is the thing that is going to be in the blue here on a Google search results page. So it's going to be the thing that captures people's attention, almost like the hook. And then the description is the thing that then encourages them then to click through to that page, really.
Okay.
So like the Christmas Creator Studio, our space features a fully themed Christmas room and beautiful style ideas throughout the house. That sounds amazing. That's something that's going to immediately, if somebody's looking for a place for a Christmas creation, you know, a Christmas Creator Studio, that's a much better description. It's much more likely to encourage people then to go through to that page. So page title description, ideally within all of your pages, you have a natural hierarchy. If we think about our website pages like an English essay, you would normally have one heading and then you'd have subheadings within that and maybe subheadings within that. For this sort of page, ideally what you would have is a H1 heading, you just have that one, and you would have within there events Bedford if you were trying to rank that page. One thing I would say with H1 headings is always make sure it sounds right for a human. If you can't, you know, if it sounds wrong, you're trying to cram a keyword in there and it just doesn't quite sound like something you would say out loud to another human, then don't add it in there. As much as
I think if we had events at the Grange Bedford, might sound a bit strange.
Yeah. I don't know. It depends what you want this page to rank for, really. Like,
but could I put it in? So are you saying when I put the description in, the description will be H2?
So the description will be your page description. So that's something you do in the back end of your website where you set your page title and your description. That will be in there. And Google doesn't always honor these as well. So if Google looks at your page description and thinks, no, that page isn't about that, I'm going to actually pluck some content from that page, as it has done now, then that can sometimes happen. So it's always worth making sure that your page description aligns with what is actually on that page. So what I would say is maybe expanding on the top of this page, expanding a little bit more. So even just a short description about the events, even if it's something like find out the upcoming events at the Grange Bedford or something like that. So that you just expand the content on this page. With any page of your website, ideally we want at least 350 words in terms of the amount of copy on that page and the amount of words that you've got on there. So even
350 for the description.
So not in the back end description, but in actually a description that or not even a description, just like an intro that you add to this page. So before you have all of the events, you have a little general information about the events that happen. And yeah, do you get what I mean? Like,
yeah, completely. Yeah,
brilliant. Okay, so yeah, you would have that within there, and within that you would then mention that keyword that you want the page to rank for. And then what I would potentially do, depending on how your website is set up, I would then have a subheading. So your H1 heading would be events at, or whatever you decide your H1 heading would be. Let me just turn on my inspector again.
So just to be clear, my H1 heading is the 350 words. Is that what you're saying?
No, your H1 heading would be a short, just literally a heading on the top there.
So how we've got it now, events at the Grange.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you would add a paragraph. That's probably the word the word I needed to add in there was a paragraph that talks about, in general, about the events you have and discover our upcoming events, those kind of things in there. And
is that my H2?
it depends how you set it up. You may not be able to get a H2 in on this page, actually. So maybe we'll look at another page in terms of the hierarchy. But what I was thinking would be a good H2 for this page would be upcoming events at the Grange. That could be a H2 on this. So you'd have your heading at the top, then a description of the page, and then underneath that, as you lead into what events are there, you would have that as a H2. Or say if you actually streamlined your events and you had them, so you had all of your wellness events together, or you had all of your business events together within here, you could have headings of that. So you could have wellness events at the Grange, business events at the Grange, and then that, obviously you'd be slightly restructuring the page here if you did that, rather than just having them in date hierarchy. But that's one way you could then get those H2 headings, and that would help Google then understand that the different types of events that you have here. Really,
I like the way of structuring it like that. I think that's a good suggestion, actually.
I think it would help in terms of if what you're trying to do with this page is you're trying to actually get people to book onto these events because you're helping your clients out with this page. That's a good way to improve that user experience and make it a lot easier for people to discover that bit. So let's come over to another page. Let's come over to your homepage and have a little look at this. And the homepage is sometimes tricky with hierarchy as well, because a homepage is like the lobby. So you can have all sorts of things going on the homepage. Really. But if we look at your homepage, you've got the title is the Grange near Bedford event venue. And your description, you've set a description in there. I'm not going to read the whole thing out. Both of those are around the right sort of character length. Ideally, you want your title under 60 characters. You want your description. Google likes between 119 and 135 characters. Those seems to be the descriptions that do best at the moment. Up to 160 characters is fine for your description as well. And then if we look at the hierarchy of your homepage, so actually, let me come out of this. So how much copy have we got on your homepage? Okay, so one of the things you could do is increasing the amount of copy on your homepage as well. So your homepage has less than 350 words on it. So I would just think about building out some more sections on your homepage. You could even add in here a small section on about us. You could add in a small section of types of events that you hold. So ultimately, what we're trying to do on your homepage is get that trust across, help people to understand why they should choose you over somebody else. And this is more of a sort of conversion point, really. But there's so much overlap between SEO and conversion rate optimization. I think it's really important to think about that, because if people come through to your homepage and then immediately bounce back to Google because they can't understand what you do, or nothing there to keep their attention, that sends a strong signal to Google that this wasn't the right web result to show, and then that can harm your rankings, really. So thinking about that, thinking about how can you make your homepage more of a signpost so that people find where they need to go on your website in it straight away, really. And that is where you would then, within the page hierarchy, make sure that you've got H1 headings and H2. So think about your homepage. What do you want your homepage to be ranking for? And that might be the Grange 1906, or maybe it's luxury location house in Bedfordshire or something like that. But then ideally what you would do is set that as your H1 heading, if you can, as I say, if it reads naturally. And then within that, you can then have those H2 headings nestled under that H1 heading there. So you've got a couple of H2s at the moment. You've got film and photography, exclusive event hire, and gallery. So thinking about that, thinking about, okay, on this page, what's the most important thing that you want this page to be ranking for? And with the homepage, you can think about, okay, what are the other search terms that in general as a business, your homepage can have lots of things that it's sort of, you're trying to rank that for, really. But I always say to focus on one first and start with that first, really. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay. Sort of summarizing and some of the things that you can sort of focus on. I think most important, getting some case study pages through your events. So off the sort of back of your events page, some case studies, whether you call it case studies or former clients or former event or events we've held, those kind of things, getting that in there. But first of all, thinking about, okay, what do I want to be ranking for? What are the search terms that I want to be showing up for on Google? And which pages of your website are the most important for that? So I think, yeah, definitely before you even think about the events page, actually start with that first. Look at those hashtags you've used across your socials. Set up Google Search Console if you can, and work out what Google is already understanding about your website and what is not, most importantly. And think about, okay, do I need to create a new page to rank for this search term, or have I already got a page that I can optimize? And especially if you've got a lot of pages hidden in the back end, if you've got a lot of pages that aren't accessible from your navigation menu, how can people find those pages? Because that's something that if people have to go 3 or 4 clicks deep, and Google has to go 3 or 4 clicks deep to be able to discover those pages, then that's going to be eating up your crawl budget. We all have a certain amount of budget that for Google to actually crawl through our website. So how can you make that simple and easy for people to navigate and be able to find what they're looking for, really? So thinking about that, thinking about building out some more content on your homepage as well. So just expanding on what you've got. And it feels like quite a few, I'm giving you quite a lot to do here, but it's something that will evolve over time. So each time you do an event, think about, okay, is that an event that I would want to then, is it encouraging those ideal clients that I'm trying to attract? How can I use that information on my website? And especially if you're already doing stuff for social media, I'm all about just building out content we own first. So as you're doing this, you're building out that asset of your website that's there, and that's then helping you to then make the most of the content. And then you can share that on social media and share links back to that page on your website as well. So any questions at this point?
No, I think it's all definitely a good idea.
So it's something that, yeah, you don't have to do it all at once. Definitely, I would say, take it step by step and just do what you can. Are you able to make changes to the back end of your website yourself, like in terms of changing the hierarchy of the pages and things like that? Or have you got somebody that does that for you? Are you able to?
I have got someone that can do that for me. So I can
Brilliant.
edit my website,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't know how to make changes to the back end. I think they're
Yeah.
two different things, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, if you're editing your website, normally within a website builder, you'll have something in there where you can set whether it's a H1 or a H2 or a paragraph. And it's basically we do that in the front end when we're using our website builder, and then the website builder will change the back end code that tells Google these things, really. So most website builders are set up in a way that that's not too tricky to be able to do that, really.
Okay, so it's important. So the changes that I make won't necessarily trigger these changes. Actually, you have to almost like double the action that you take by doing this as well.
So how do you mean?
So if I just go in, for instance, and tweak the text according to what we've done. So for instance, with the events page, put in that little first paragraph there.
Yes.
I still have to get the back end tweaked. It's not like an automatic thing that kind of happens with my addition of my description.
So when you add the description in, you'll probably have to add a block in there, and then you would select that as a paragraph block. Or if you were adding a headline, if you were adding a H2 heading, as you drag that block in, you should be able to select it as a H2 block or a H1 block. Or normally most website builders have that where you can actually select that. You can either highlight the text and select it that way, and it will then something will pop up on your website builder that will then be able to then select that this is a H1 heading. Or it will be you drag a block in, and even if you have to do that, if you can see a H1 block is available, drag that in and copy and paste the text in there, and it's probably the easiest way.
Okay.
Really. But it's normally really, really simple to do that. It's normally something that we do it for style. So at some point this would have been set up to show that this is capitals and it's this particular size, and often we use those headings for styling, but it's so much more important to use them for the hierarchy of the page, because it helps Google understand, it helps the chatbots understand, like AI chatbots understand as well. I don't know why I said chatbots, AI bots to understand that as well, really. So it's something that once you've had a play with the back end of your website and you see it, And I say back end, and that is really where you're changing the text is the back end anyway. So you're already in there.
That's what I was getting a little bit confused with,
Yeah.
like back end something different from the changes that I'm making.
No, it's the same place. Everybody's website is slightly different and website builders are different, but usually you will see that within there. And if not, maybe ask your web developer, because they might be able to show you this is where you need to make that change there, really.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So any other questions or any sort of light bulb moments, anything that's like, okay, I know I'm going to focus on that first, or?
No, I think it's all very straightforward what you've spoken about. I think it's more just me taking the time for actually what do I want Google to pick us up for? And that's not necessarily actually events. Like that's actually not really one of our focuses. It's a great addition for our clients, but what I want to be picked up for it is those people that are looking to hold events. So I think for me, it's actually taking some time to think about those keywords, think about the biggest clients that we have, and then tweaking accordingly, I think is probably where, if I'm going to have like a scale of effort, that's where I want to put in the biggest amount of effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And those words as well, then you'll be able to use those throughout. Obviously, you're already using them through your socials, but it then might give you additional hashtags that you can use throughout your socials as well. And if you're doing email marketing or anywhere else where you're trying to get your message across, by doing that work, then that will all help, really, I think. Yeah.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And just other things I always pick up on that I know you've said. So it is really important to keep your website, like amending it, adding to it. So whether that's through a blog section, whether it's through the tweaks that I make to the events page, that's still really important in the Google rankings, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Because what that's doing is telling Google that this website is still relevant, this content is still relevant, you're still a business that's there and operating and you're making changes. And yeah, it's really important to do that, actually. And what that doesn't necessarily mean creating new content all the time. It can be updating an old blog post. So if you've got an old blog post that actually you feel like, I've not really, this isn't doing well, or alternatively, once you've set up your Google Search Console, you've got a blog post that you see is in like position 11 on Google. What tweaks could you make to that to then hop over onto the front page? And then you're going to get a lot more clicks through from just being in that front page, really.
Yeah.
So definitely. So but it's all important just to keep those tweaks coming. And ultimately, it's what you own, it's content you own. So that it's really important to keep going with it, really.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's been so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much potential there for you. I think it's something that sometimes just taking a step back, as I say, and thinking about, okay, what do we want to happen with our website? What do we want Google to understand about this? And it's just a way of it just being a bit more sustainable. If you can just get some more traffic and capitalize on that traffic where people are already searching for things around your business, then I think that could be fantastic, really.
And also you think about how much you pay to host it every month. Actually, how can you make sure you're maximizing your return on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And then one thing I would say as well, just another little thing, as you're thinking about the pages, thinking about the search terms you want to show up for, also think about what action do you want people to take from that page, because that's not always necessarily a given that we kind of think, oh yeah, they'll know to fill in a form, or they'll know to contact me, or whatever. Think about what you want them to do from that page as well.
Okay, thanks very much.
You're very, very welcome. It's been a pleasure to have you on. I've been looking forward to doing this one. So before we finish, I would love you to just give yourself another little shout out and let everybody know what you do, and most importantly, where they can find you and connect with you and find out more.
So you can find us, the Grange_1906 on Instagram. The website is thegrange1906.co.uk, and we are your venue if you want an exclusive experience for filming, photography, or an event.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So if this episode has made you think about improving your own website SEO and you want to get started, check out my beginner's guide to SEO. I'll link to that in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks, Jennie, for being here, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much, Jules. Bye.
Bye.